of my videos are me just kind of thinking out loud and talking out loud about things and just elaborating on different experiences and felt presence of experience, which is experience. And I want to, as someone that has mental health struggles and deals with chronic mental toughness and dis-ease, I want to offer some kind of like my own kind of little bit of advice and encouragement and perspective. I'm 36, and I've been dealing with this with most of my life, and it's really hard to pin down where it's coming from or how exactly to ameliorate like its origin, because oftentimes it does have to do with like childhood trauma or something that happened really early on in your development. But also as you go through life and maybe things don't work out or you get really hurt by someone, or just kind of lose your groove or morale and you just like feel despondent and bereft, like things later on in life can cause that, is what I'm saying. And I think it's both, it's like mental toughness is both internal and external. So things happen to us and it affects us internally, and then internally we see the world differently and or maybe are more cynical, and we project ourselves or move through this space in maybe a different way, like maybe more closed off and less open, because we get hurt here, and so that's why a lot of people are fearful and timid. I mean, it makes sense. And we also, in this society, we're put into this box that we don't really fit. Like, we have these long work hours, and I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but I just want to lay it all out. We have these long work hours, the expected 40 hours a week, and most people don't even make 50 grand a year, and the housing is so expensive, and so we have that constraint. Like, I'm not even anywhere close to owning a house or getting even starting that, and I've just been working my whole life, and I've had to pay off medical bills and a few other debts and stuff, but so it's not like I have any huge debts, except for a little credit debt, but that's normal. But I haven't saved a whole lot, or the times I have saved, I ended up having to spend it on something. And sometimes it's a frivolous spending, but I've gotten a lot better at that. But it's hard to save, especially in this consumerist society, because there is joy in consumerism. Like, you buy a new thing, you get a new guitar, you get a new car, you start a new hobby. Like, that's, I know money, doesn't make happiness or whatever, but it sure freaking helps. If you have a jet ski, like, how depressed can you be if you're out there, If you're willing to put yourself out there, like if you're trying to help your mental health and help your state of being, there are things to do. I have different kind of practices I do to help myself. One I learned in caregiving, which is redirecting. So if you're having a bad experience with something, or something's not working out, something you're trying to do isn't working out, to just put that on pause and go. It's basically changing the channel. You're just going to go do something else. Just forget about that for a minute. And because we get stuck really easily. So that kind of things happen. And there's high expenses. And then there's the whole social dynamic where there's so many falling outs with relationships and people that don't understand each other or can't really appreciate each other. And then there's this whole loss of hype. Like, there's not a whole lot of hype and wonder and fascination with things anymore. We experienced that a lot more as kids. And then after enough letdowns and getting beat down in this life, like, unless you're like one of those people that had a good win in life, but, you know, I'm due for a good win. And a good win in life, that's an antidepressant right there. That's a major antidepressant. Music is antidepressants. A good relationship, like the best relationships I've had, is the least depressed I've ever been. And now that's not saying that someone else solves my issues. Like, that's not the way to think about it. It's like you have to own your stuff and work on yourself and like have your boundaries or whatever. But to have someone around and to have something special like that is so enriching. And you get those, I don't know, like neurochemicals or transmitters or whatever, like the oxytocin, or I don't know, it's probably another one or something. But you know what I mean? Like, you get that serotonin, you get that feeling of well-being, of success, and that, like, huge antidepressant. It's mostly the lack of that causes depression. And all these unnatural things that we do, like, that's normal, like these really long work hours, like even the things I like to do, like play guitar. I don't play guitar 40 hours a week. There was a time I almost did, actually, but no, like, even my height of practicing guitar, like, religiously, not even 40 hours a week. And, like, we're just like, it's like we need more of a variety in our life, you know, because you do the same thing over and over. That's how you get burnt out. And burnt out, it's another avenue in depression. It's like the anxiety, and it's like you're burning both ends of the candle. And sleep is another huge one. Like, you get, the better sleep you get, the better your mental state. Like, some of the happiest friends and people I know, they have the gift of just being able to sleep whenever they feel like they need it. If they need a nap, if they need to sleep in. Not all of us are like that. Some of us really struggle with sleep, and oftentimes that, like, subsequently the mental struggles accumulate, and easy things become difficult. And then that's just frustrating, because when you start becoming forgetful and goof stuff up, and you just, you know, it just gets frustrating. Like, all the small things get so annoying. And then, you know, people try to compensate for their, like, not feeling good by, you know, drugs and alcohol or whatever, and then that puts more load on your system. And I'm just speaking from experience here. Done it. Been there, done that. Still kind of doing it a little bit. But I see it as more of, I try to do everything in moderation, and I do think of, you know, certain plants as plant medicine. Like, it's more of a sacred thing than it is just like, woo, party. It's not so much that. It's more like I'm trying to attain a certain mental state, and I can only go so far without the help of any substances. And if you find a good antidepressant, of course that helps. I am fortunate to find one that helps me a little bit without any side effects, which is really nice. I take lamotrigine, or Lamictal, and that seems to be a pretty good one for me over the years. Haven't had any problems so far, but it helps a little bit. I feel like I have a little more fortitude to withstand the waves of life. It's not that I still don't get, like, you know, overwhelmed or whatever. That still happens, but I have a little more there. I have a little more, I don't know, resilience or something. But yeah, it's like going back to relationships. Oh man, it's so depressing. That's probably the most depressing thing I ever experienced. Other than probably some stuff that happened with family, is relationships that have was just a beautiful thing, and they kind of just like fell through. Like the other person didn't really appreciate, like they just didn't want to do that anymore. It was like, oh, you're just gonna throw away the coolest thing that's happened? Okay. And that just feels really lousy. Like, talk about the feeling of being devalued. That's the feeling of being devalued, and it's really important. It's really important to realize that that's not because that person devalues you. They're just going a different direction. They just they can't completely reciprocate like the chemistry that you're getting out of it. And I've been on both sides of that. But that's really tough. And like, it's oftentimes we go long periods of time without any kind of like intimacy or anything like that. And a lot of us like to save face. We're like, oh, I don't need that. I'm such an evolved human. I don't need to have sex. And it's like, yeah, I mean, we don't need to, but it's like when you're using that like part of you more regularly, like there is a way, like it's like it does something to your chemistry. And at least for me, like I feel I just have a general like better disposition. But we're all different, and so it's not that way for everyone. But I'm just naming all the things that put weight on mental health if you already struggle with that kind of thing. And then there's the seasonal stuff, of course, on top of all that, like not getting enough of the sun. And it's interesting to see when it's been like gray like it is like now for a long time, and then if we get a day where the sun comes through the window, all of a sudden I'll like feel a little bit good, like there'll be a discernible difference, and I'm like, oh wow, I feel a little lighter, and then I'm like, oh, the sun's coming through the window. So yeah, being able to get out in nature, being able to go somewhere different, finding the right, not just the right medicine, but the right amount of medicine, and how to, just the best way to approach that, and what works best for you. Obviously, I'm no doctor. I'm just speaking anecdotally, obviously. And I like to hear other people's experiences too. It's all to be taken with a grain of salt because we're all different. Just from a practical approach. I mean, these things are self-evident, you know, that we're all different and we all have slightly different chemistry. And some things that work for some people have the opposite effect for other people. So be wary of anyone that says, like, anyone can do this, or this works for everyone. It's like, no. Where there is there's always an exception. There's always an exception to the rule with everything, it seems like here. There's probably an exception to the rule with gravity. We just haven't discovered it yet. Who knows? But yeah, and then we're inundated with this social media stuff, which, like, with our evolution, we're like, it's come upon us so fast, like we haven't had that kind of amount of like attention shift, like consciousness. How can I say this more concisely? Like the span of our consciousness, as far as watching these like reels and scrolling, and like that hasn't, you know, 20, like 30 years ago or whatever, that wasn't a thing. So we're the guinea pigs of this whole new technological era, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. It sure is slow going. And of course the mental health in the medical field and stuff is not great either. If you tell your doctor you have depression, it's like they're gonna give you a survey, and then however you rate on it, then they're just gonna like diagnose you, and then I guess you can get medicated. But it's like there isn't any, like, I've been through it, there isn't, like, not much has changed. I had counseling, I had a psychiatrist and stuff for a while, and there was a little bit of benefit there, but for the most part it didn't really change anything, even though I put like everything I could into it to like make the most of it. But I've more found my own ways to kind of work around it and recognize when I'm going through a struggle or something, and how to navigate and not project these unpleasant and or invasive negative feelings or thoughts, and not to project those on anyone else, but just kind of sit with them and be like, what is happening here? This is not my vibe. This is not what this person's trying to do either. That's why I think there's other forces at play. I've mentioned in so many of my videos, like, I think there's other spiritual beings. We haven't been able to prove it, but when I see leaves floating in the air, I don't think it's magic. I think it's the wind. We just can't see it. And so it's kind of one of those causality things. It's like, oh, something's happening. What is the cause? What's causing that to happen in the first place? And so it's just asking the question a little further in. And right now I'm like, there is other forces at play. Obviously, I don't know anything for certain. There's always uncertainty, but I'm willing to wager. And it will be disclosed, I'm sure, at some point. It's like we didn't get to this just for this to be one big cosmic accident and it's just a blink and it's gonna be gone. Like, I think this is a part of a way longer story, and it's not gonna be over after this. It's way easier for me to believe that there's many other worlds out there, probably many very similar to this one, maybe more evolved. I think this one's probably one of the least evolved, kind of like special ed planet. Sorry, not sorry, just stating the facts. But for those of us that have been here, we can say, oh God, I know what that's like, and don't want to go there. I mean, unless you're born to a fortunate situation and are really able to fulfill your life goals. I mean, I wouldn't want to come back here.